happening, everyone? Happy Tuesday. I seriously forget what day of the week is half the time. I look at my top right calendar deal and I'm like, oh, it's Tuesday. That's right, April 18th. We are live. We're doing it live today. We're live not every single day, but we're live a lot of the days. There's a few days in the week that we aren't live, so usually the weekends, unless I make special accommodations because I try to take some time off. But there's so much going on in the ecosystem. Oh my gosh. We've been waiting on V4 for at least like 4 days now that I actually thought it may be coming. And then I guess a week and 4 days from when Richard said it was going to come. But it's you got to 2 and 4x that guy. He's as he says, he's very bad with time estimates and all that stuff. So anyways, I hope everyone's having a great day. Mine just got a little bit better, I got to say. After I stopped, I slowed down for a minute and able to take a quick break before we got into it with our esteemed guest today. It's got to be his 5th time on the show. Dipcatcher is here, and we'll bring him in just a minute. But we'll say hi to the chat, and then I'll get him in, and we'll get to partying. There'll be some party time today. Hex enthusiasts. I almost said hexistentialist because there's a lot of hexy names out there. Hex enthusiasts, welcome. Dipcatcher's in the chat. What's up? Nazim Z15. If I'm saying that incorrectly, let me know. But you got a lot of symbols in your deal too. So that's looks like a few of those may be related to the Maximus ecosystem. Have you heard of it? It is a great place. Yeah, I said 2 more weeks. Minutes within the hour. Yes, that's a great way to put it as well. Yes. Well, again, everyone share the link and smash all the buttons. Do whatever you want to do there. We're gonna get this party started. The author of at least the 2 best-selling books, Stop Spending Your Money on Gas Fees and Start Staking for 100 Years Today, the Tanto of Nominis. Welcome back to the show, Dipcatcher. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
I stole that.
Back again.
Yeah, back again. Dipcatcher Radio, everyone. Got a shirt on today, man. What's up? What happened to the shirt?
Yeah,
usually got glasses and no shirt. That's
I know. What am
I
doing?
Dipcatcher after dark.
I'm not prepared. Oh, of course I'm prepared.
Oh, you got it. Nice. Oh, okay. I like those. I like it's like the disco pilot glasses. I like that. Nice.
Yeah, on the Amazon listing it said hexagons, but then if you look closely, they are octagons.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say they are gons of something. Okay, now I see octagons. Yeah, it's close enough.
Now my money's gone, so I'm like
yeah, well, some factory in China thanks you.
Money gone.
Yeah, money gone. I was gonna say they look like is it wafers? They look like wafers actually. That's what it made me think of at first. Silicon wafers. So it's got that kind of cool vibe going too. Yeah.
Could be.
How nerdy of me. Yes. That's what I like to do. What's up,
the things you eat, right? You eat the wafer?
Yeah. The ones you get them from Ukraine, and you can they slice them up and dice them in Taiwan and all that good stuff. Yes. Dev Huey, shout out Dev Huey. Him and GIF will be on the show tomorrow, talking about some Hedron stuff. So that'll be fun, and giving away a bunch of the Hex Model Pro memberships, which is man. That have you used hexmodel.com, Dipcatcher? It's
So while preparing for the launch of Poly, I was kind of using that as like a second source of data. Kind of as I was kind of sanity checking some of the calculations I was making about like the scheduling of when things were coming out, the T shares in these auctions. So I've used it, along those lines. I like keeping up with the information that they tweet out. Some of those like snapshots about like watts of burning and stuff like that. So that's pretty awesome stuff. And I think we were talking about, at least, I think I was talking to Dev Huey about granting access in a way similar to the Dipcatcher algorithm launch, kind of with like some baked in scarcity to the people that can join, being able to sell access in a way that's native to these, this category of users, where minting a token and on a DApp is like a very common user interface that people are used to. Right. Kind of the revenue sharing with like that buddy pass. So I think I was telling him a couple weeks ago that if he wants to explore how to give access, like kind of that elevated access on the site, that something like that may be a good way to do it. So.
Oh, interesting too. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, yeah, what's the latest on DCA? What's happening? I haven't talked to you for about a month or so on it.
Yeah. So in total, about 900 of these have been minted. Far greater than what I thought. I thought it was going to be maybe 200 or 400, because how the price kind of ratchets up every 200 mints. So about 900 of these have been minted, and so the price in ETH has been ratcheting up. I think right now it's about 0.045 ETH, and the current ETH price, for effectively 2 passes in, it's about $94. So I'm kind of expecting it to slow down. This is about the number that I thought it would kind of cap out at. Kind of as we have seen, a couple dozen of the burning of the DCA token, people exercising the buddy pass. And so the buddy pass itself is getting pretty scarce too. And so the market value of the buddy pass token is currently about $66 last I looked. So,
okay.
So minting gives you access. And then if you just immediately sold the buddy pass token, it comes out to you paying about $30 for entry, lifetime access to the algorithm. Periodically updates. I've pushed a couple updates kind of on the back end so people can see, just so it kind of improves over time. And so, yeah, like it's, got about 500 and some people with access to the algorithm. So some people are stockpiling the buddy pass. Mm-hmm. I know some people were kind of doing that because if you bought the dip catcher algorithm, there's this airdrop for the upcoming party launch. So I imagine some of the recent buying at higher prices has been for that. And yeah, so it's so that's how the launch has gone of, granting access to a limited number of people. But the actual algorithm itself is really rounded out. Like if you look at any local dip in the price, it's pretty good at rounding out those dips. And so it almost hit on the daily chart on HEX on just the normal settings. Didn't quite get low enough, but on like if you looked at the 6-hour interval or some of the more sensitive or the timeframes that are more sensitive to the algorithm going off, it kind of rounded out the recent lows. And so overall, people have been pretty happy with it. I see people on Twitter tweeting about it with links and stuff, or just see it on people's charts. So overall, it's pretty effective.
Did I was gonna say on the people maybe buying it for the party airdrop and stuff, will it be, or I don't know if you've talked about this or not, or people just suspect it, will it be weighted more heavily towards DCA versus other coins, or?
So it could be, yeah. So the only information I've given about like what, is that it'll become clear after the fact. So each coin will have its own weighting. Obvious initial reason is just that, one lucky doesn't equal, one lucky is roughly equal to one deci in terms of the backing with the supply measured in HEX. But like with, poly, which is, the digits are way different. That's kind of oriented around hedron. And then same with like DCA, where the supply is like a couple hundred. They all kind of have their own, as in terms of the whole network value. They each represent a different, each unit of each coin represents a different percent of the whole. So kind of for obvious reasons, they each need their own type of weighting per unit. And then also, there's some where people have taken more risk than others. There's some where, there's amongst that, it's not meant to be like an actual like reflective value of like, the dollar value per unit. There's some kind of weighting in there, which, I'm not really going to disclose what that is. It'll become clear after, but just so people don't game it or just don't too successfully game it and just kind of crowd one versus the other. We don't know what the weighting will be. It will be quite fair. There's nothing that really sways it in any major direction. The whole goal of the airdrop breakdown is really just to fairly, allocate this amount of the supply to, just reward people that have been a part of this whole experience. So that's really
the goal. How much of the party supply is it all going to be airdropped? Like maybe talk about the mechanics of that. Like how big an airdrop should we expect for this stuff?
So the more minting participation, the larger the airdrop, because it comes out, it's a flat 10% of the total mint supply that is minted during the launch phase. And so the launch phase is, for sake of the calculation of what that total supply is, it'll include all of the party that is basically being pre-allocated through the name claim phase, where people are able to buy these name claims. There's some amount of the supply that's being generated in that, and then the final amount of supply will be that plus the amount of party that is minted during the mint phase. And so it'll be probably about 30-day mint phase where you can mint 42,069 party per ETH, and then just the total supply of that is just going to be divided by 10, and then that's the total amount that is airdropped to the Maximus community, through that airdrop. So 10% of the total initial supply. And so the more minting that goes on, then the more, the more that you get, as the number grows, you get more. And then also the way you can think about that is that, like say 100 ETH gets minted into party, then that means that 10 ETH worth of party is being given to you for free. So it's like as if you had minted if you were the only one getting the airdrop, so you represent the whole airdrop, then it's like, okay, you got 10. It's like as if you minted with 10 ETH, but you didn't have to part with 10 ETH. And so the larger the minting participation, the larger the value of that airdrop.
Okay. And I guess the question too for all DCA holders is how does this become a Unisox event? What is the roadmap to make DCA into Unisox type price action, if nothing else?
Yeah, I mean, so part of the Unisox price action was driven by the Uni airdrop, where Sox holders got a huge amount. Like, how Uni was like 400 Uni per MetaMask or per address that you used Uniswap on. If I remember right, the Sox was something like 1,200 or something. So it was like much larger than the 400, like just by using it. So it was a substantial one. And so I think there was some front running of it because it started pumping a little bit before then. And then the airdrop happened. And then it was just kind of like this like retroactive thing where like people like missed the airdrop and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to buy it now in case there's a future airdrop or something. Or they thought that they could just like get the airdrop by buying it then. So that was like the next kind of leg up there. And then there's a pretty big supply crunch on DCA when the NFT craze was going on, because when you redeemed your Unisox for the actual unicorn themed socks, you got an NFT. And I think there was some market for the NFTs on OpenSea. That was like peak NFT heyday. And so people were buying the Unisox token. So they're buying the Sox token to burn it to get the NFT. So there's kind of that special blend of like airdrop coming, and then people that regretted it who missed the airdrop are now buying it because they're like, okay, well, if they airdropped it once, maybe they'll airdrop again. Then the price action attracted people buying it for, FOMOing and all that. And then just like something that caused future burning of supply. So like once the price was high, supply that people were speculatively buying were now burning it for that speculative reason. So, some combination of that. And so I guess we have the airdrop coming up. So step one of
the party.
Yeah. And then,
well, you got the burning, you got burning of passes, right?
Yeah. So just as people use them, because at some point it'll be, kind of unreasonably expensive to mint. Because after 100 more, because it ratchets up every 200 mints, it'll go up to about 0.05 ETH. And so, it's like $100. And, how much is the access, worth? Like, if you're buying it, and then from there, it could just become very scarce. And then as people want to get it, they could get it. And then, so maybe as the sales channel, maybe that's kind of a center of gravity that kind of, keeps that there. But, what if related to some launch so there's some other benefit of being one of those dip catcher access members, or some, because like when you mint your, like, or when you burn it to gain access, or if you just mint the access pass, separate from the DCA token, when either when you burn the DCA token or just mint, you're added to this list where it's called the member list. And so maybe there's some other thing that people want to end up on that list for. And then at that point, if it's that as it ratchets up the cost of minting, then that kind of helps it go. But yeah, so
who knows? List you want to end up on. That's the list you want to end up on.
One of many such lists, I might add. There's each of the projects has kind of had their own kind of list of high value, dedicated people that have demonstrated that they're in this moment.
Benevolence.
Even not necessarily benevolence, because anyone with those coins, they can sell. It's a ruthless game, but that people can play. But more just like they were here in this moment. They are, and that's a special group, when because I mean, DCA only a couple hundred people. That's of all the billions of people in the world, that there's a couple hundred people that in this moment we're doing this digital experience together. Like that's a pretty special group. And, so we have that with DCA, a couple hundred people. We have that with water, which is like, even less than that. There's more wallets in DCA than, say water, bunch of wallets in Maxi and the pools. So kind of each, there's kind of this cohort of about 10,000 people, because when I did a practice snapshot for the airdrop, came out to just under 10,000 addresses that currently qualify. And so that means that there's about 10,000 Maximus users, and
10,000 gladiators.
Yeah, real gladiators, where because this party airdrop, it's the first airdrop that's happened in our ecosystem. So these are all people with skin in the game. 100% of the things so far require you to have real skin in the game. There's no airdrop, there's no free mint yet. Now with the party that changes, that there's some airdrop, but this is a very special category of people. And so this party airdrop is hopefully just another demonstration of how just being in the game and going through the motion and completing these quests and interacting with these contracts, good things come your way from that. It's like with Maxi, there was the team launch, which caused some deflationary pressure on the Maxi and locked up a bunch of Maxi. Like that's probably why Maxi held its premium, or at least over parity with 1-to-1 with the mint rate. And then now this is kind of the chance to this airdrop is a good chance to reward the part, just all participants in the ecosystem so far, because since then we've had what would they be like 3 or 4 unique things that came after Maxi and the pools. So
yeah, well, I was going to ask how the mystery box ties into this too, because maybe that's a question too. Like, what benevolent things has the mystery box done so far that you know of?
Yeah, so I mean, it's all on chain. So far, the mystery box has simply hoarded all the Maxi. So all the Maxi that went into the mystery box, it just sits there. The only use of it has been because the mystery box is actually a smart contract, and it has something that prevents it from being just all withdrawn in one transaction. It forces it to be in just smaller transactions, and it requires you to pay the mystery box. In order to withdraw from the mystery box, you actually have to pay the mystery box. And so basically what it means is that the mystery box is the only address that can withdraw for free. But withdraw meaning send it to the mystery box. So the only action that's gone on in the mystery box is just transferring the Maxi from the mystery box to the other address that's in that contract, which is called the mystery box hot address. And then the mystery box hot address, all that has done is it withdrew team from the mystery box into the mystery box hot, and then airdropped it to team stakers, base, trio, lucky, and desi diamond handers. So it was about 2% of the total mystery box team has been airdropped. So all the only action that the mystery box has taken so far is hoarding the team and hoarding the Maxi, and then airdropping about 2% of the team to the current team stakers and to the diamond handers of the perpetual pools.
Gotcha. Super interesting mystery box. And with Hedron, you have the deployer address / SA.
So I think the SA is, I might have to check on this, but I thought there's the SA and the deployer address.
Right.
There's the address that can, like get, and it might be the same thing, because there's the one that gets the copy of all the bonuses. And so what's pretty interesting is that kind of speaking of like, benevolence in this case, when the Hedron deployer injected a bunch of Hedron into the poly contract, it actually did it from Hedron that it collects from bonus minting. Like when you mint your bonus Hedron, the Hedron deployer gets some percentage of that. And so by now the Hedron deployer has more than replenished all of the Hedron that it had effectively airdropped to the poly holders.
Nice.
So it's I think it's a pretty interesting concept that just within our ecosystem, there's kind of this, kind of culture of that type of network participant. One where it's like, it has, where it, while although it represents some level of supply centralization, it's kind of past the point where there's really anything valuable you can do with it. Like, what's the Hedron deployer going to do with all that Hedron? Like nothing. Like, it's kind of,
I can tell you the imaginary horrible it could do with it.
Yeah. I mean, and really the worst you can do is just dump the price, and then it's just like, okay, new price now. But
it is pretty cool to have this concept of friends with addresses. Like the entity can have other, like, do tip of the hats to other entities in the ecosystem. I think that's very unique and very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, and I think it adds a level of kind of like flexibility without having to change anything about the contract itself, right? Because like with the Hedron, for Hedron deployer, for example, kind of those, there's those other kind of like proof of benevolence things, or other basically in any way that it can, inject value into different avenues. Like the things that it can do to kind of kickstart the stake yield. It can, like, where it's basically, diluting itself to, inject that value elsewhere in the ecosystem. It's like those are things that could have just been part of the supply distribution, but then those would have had to have been, invented and built before launch. And so having that kind of flexible supply, I think, is actually a pretty powerful thing, where it can be integrated, kind of how, like, Hedron is, like the source address and the Hedron deployer, the Hedron that it procures is used, across, in ICOSA as well, through the kind of those injections. I forgot what it's called in the contract, but it adds a level of flexibility without having to actually update any code, where it's like the contract itself is being updated to implement new revenue streams or new, kind of value, injections or something. It's just something that's kind of done at the discretion of the developer, where it's like, okay, if that was a feature from the start to automatically like inject value in this way, or mint Hedron and then, inject it to, boost the earnings, then those things, rather than those being at their discretion during the development, it's more just like at the discretion in use. And so I think it's actually a really flexible, like from a development perspective, a way to kind of have that trustlessness with, like, where the code's not changing, but having there just being a portion of the supply that can be, where no one has any expectations. You assume it just sits there, or you assume it gets sold, but it's just supply. And then, as things change and as, new ideas come about, it can be used as kind of like, an extension to the initial concept without having like admin keys that can update the code. So I think that's actually a really, really powerful concept there with these, like, kind of these network. I view them as like network addresses, where it's like, So same with Team, right? It's like with Team, that 50%, that copy of the Team supply that went to the mystery box, so far the only thing the mystery box has done is airdrop Team. It's like that could have otherwise just been built in, where like some percent of the supply is going to go to Team stakers in year one. And, it's like what played out could have just been coded in at the start, but it didn't have to be, because maybe that, things change. And so it's kind of a way to supplement the economics, in just kind of after the fact. So kind of like a way for it to kind of be dynamic, but not have to necessarily build all these features at initial launch.
Exactly. You can just, new features without changing the code, and as long as you do it in a benevolent way, I think that's a very cool flexibility that we have. So I don't know who else is doing this. Again, I don't participate in a lot of the ecosystems, but who is even in a consistent basis, the whole ethos of people doing this, building products around this, and sharing these type of ideals, and the whole entities giving nods to each other. I've never seen anything like it. I think it's super cool, and I love the flexibility and add the discretion, as long as you do have to trust the discretion is a good discretion, and it's wise choices and all this stuff. But I guess worst case, we all get dumped on and we go home and go back and get jobs again or something. I'm cool with that risk. I'm in. I'm already in. So a few questions in the chat. I just wanted to put them up here. Hex enthusiast. Hey, DevCatcher, much respect for you and Gold. Keep doing all this. I want all the Maxi goodness. Curious if you have a response or responding to the warnings go around about the waiting for proof of redeeming the perps.
Yeah, I mean, so they've been tested and kind of proven in so many different ways. So first, before they launched, there was a full cycle testing on testnet, where instead of a 1 year, a 3 year, a 7 year, and a 10 year, it was 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, 10 days. And there's no difference in terms of how the contract handles a 1 day versus, or one day versus 1 year. And so those were fully tested. And then we posted the, links to the block explorer to show the string of transactions that for ending and redeeming, and people were able to end and redeem on the dApps on testnet. So we did a full cycle testing of that whole redemption cycle. And so in addition to that, they've also been tested in a way where you fork Ethereum. So you fork Ethereum at the current block onto a local testnet, and then you basically just fast forward time by basically you just mine a bunch of blocks. So mine enough blocks to go out a year, and then end the base stake, and then did the redemption. So that other than a manual test on PulseChain testnet, even further testing of actually how does the Ethereum mainnet and the Ethereum EVM, fast forwarded to when the stake ends, how does that respond? And that it also worked and was proven there. So it's kind of been proven in two different ways that there's not so much of an issue with the, there's no issue at all with redeeming the perpetuals. So that's just more, it's like Imaginary Horrible, where it's different than other Imaginary Horribles, where there's no way to actually test if it's going to work. You can't test if the government's going to cut off your internet because you use crypto. There's no way to actually test if that's going to happen in the future. But so Imaginary Horribles like that, whatever, this type of Imaginary Horrible, there's a way to prove to yourself, or just test that it works, and it's been done in two different ways. So it's
beyond a reasonable doubt is the legal way, I guess.
Yeah. And if you're worried, you can go and you don't need, you can go, and there's a simple guide for how to render a fork of Ethereum mainnet on a local, just on your own machine. And then you could, and then you paste in the contract address, write about 6 lines of JavaScript, and you can test to see if at block, 10 years from, or 1 year from now on base 3 from, whatever block you expect them to end, what will the, will it end? And so you can test it yourself.
We need 100% time for 3 more years before we start buying perpetuals. Okay, DC. It's gotta wait and see.
And you know, so but you know, so which is actually kind of a good thing, because it's kind of good that there's some, if the discount is what it is because of that, which I actually don't think it is. I think the discount's mainly driven by just how long away it is, and you're basically converting very liquid hex in your hand to a version of wrapped hex that is less liquid. Like if you look at the liquidity book on the hex USD, the largest hex USDC pair, largest hex ETH pair, those are larger than the largest, than, you know, the liquidity on just any of the pool pairs. And so it's like, it's basically discounting to the liquidity, and then also just discounting to the present, you know, where the earnings are far away. And so there's no instant arbitrage opportunity. Like during the mint phases, they stay at 1-to-1 because there's instant arbitrage. If price goes below or above the mint rate, then it's instant arbitrage. So like in a single block, you can close that spread and make the money. Whereas there's no instant arbitrage opportunity for closing the spread on the DECI, you know, what it is now versus redemption, because redemption's in 10 years. With base, it's a little bit tighter because base ends now in like 6 months. And so it's already halfway done, but there still is some discounting to the present, you know, mainly, you know, discounting to the present and also discounting to the relative illiquidity, you know, to just the holding the hex. And also, you know, kind of what that suggests is that they're, you know, attracting kind of more speculative audiences, where as the hex price is going up, it's like they're willing to sell that as a version of hex, you know, to hop into whatever other thing, or, you know, to balance out, or, you know, do whatever. So, you know, it's just kind of a nature of who owns the supply, is kind of what drives those discounts. And I think that's the dominant element of price in the pools. You know, the handful of people that are worried about that, even though it's kind of been proven to not be an issue, then you know, that's like probably a very small contingent of demand that may not have much money to work with.
I think that's the only concerns I ever hear about perpetuals, is low liquidity. And I haven't heard about the redemption deal. Apparently that's a thing, proof redemption stuff. But I guess maybe I can ask this question too. Like, what is the case for and against the mystery box, that entity just solving these things, not the redemption issue, but like as far as liquidity, why wouldn't they just put up liquidity? Your theories on that, I guess.
Well, so I mean, so the assets that they have that don't necessarily boost liquidity to the whole ecosystem. All the mystery box has is, it has Maxi and Team, and so adding Maxi to those pools, while Maxi itself, you know, I mean, Maxi is more liquid than all of them, but you know, so it injects some in that way, but it, like, that itself isn't necessarily injecting new value as a part of the whole. Like, so Maxi included in the pools, just like making a big pool between Maxi and the pools isn't that, you know, it's not like the, you know, it doesn't necessarily add liquidity. Maybe it makes trading between the base Maxi thicker, but like if someone's selling their base, it's like, okay, their swap gets routed from base to Maxi to hex to USDC. Like, just having that Maxi pool there or not doesn't, you know, maybe it makes one leg of it, you know, maybe it can help spread some of Maxi's own liquidity across those other pools. But, you know, it doesn't necessarily add like net liquidity. So that's probably, you know, kind of number one there. You know, and you know, it's truly a mystery what does happen, and you know, so truly anything could at any time. I think that there's some solutions that I'm pretty interested in exploring that'll become a lot more relevant once party happens and there's even more pools, where it's, you know, kind of framing. Because like when people want liquidity in these pools, what they're really asking for is exit liquidity, you know, like, and so, you know, what is the fair exit price in terms of getting out of your stake, right? Because it's like
exit or less slippage, I guess, would be the thing you'd be looking for when trading.
Yeah. So you want to get a better price in general.
Yeah.
And so, there being a discount means there's not necessarily a lack of sell side supply. But like the one that probably matters most for the value proposition, at least, the value proposition, once you already have it, is that it is saleable. And, so far, like, in smaller sell orders, all of them you can get out with not very much slippage. And so, so for that part of the value proposition of being able to sell these assets, it's like you really need incoming, sources of buy support. And so, there's some kind of aggregation solutions that kind of exist, but I'm definitely very interested in some concepts of kind of pool aggregation. Poly kind of gave me a kind of a first kind of feeling of that, because that's effectively what Poly was. Is it's like an HSI aggregator. Like that's the part that actually works and worked well with Poly. Like the auction part didn't quite work out as intended, even though that actually caused it to become a higher yielding asset. Poly's the high, like if you measure the APY, Poly's actually the highest APY asset that of all the pools. Interesting. Awesome. So the thing that caused us to put a abrupt stop to the auction strategy accidentally made it a higher yielding asset. So that's kind of a nice little blessing there. But but the part of Poly that actually worked was the HSI aggregation. It didn't work as it plugged in with the auction, but just in terms of like aggregating HSIs and representing those in a pool, that part actually works totally fine. And so, but that concept in general of being able to take in stakes of different values, because pool A versus pool B, they have different tickers, different supplies, and different stake lengths, and different earnings. And so, how do you have something that reflects the value of that asset, like in a kind of non-speculative way? Like what's like a kind of an intrinsic value of that asset? And so things that would allow for kind of like bundling of these, or even ways to kind of like as an alternative to getting HEX exposure by joining HEX pools, HEX stake pools, where like you're putting all the HEX into starting a new stake. Things where if you want T-shares via HEX pools, you can join a HEX pool that is programmed to buy any pool token at like a T-shares versus time remaining price that is that the DAO, the liquidity DAO or whatever would want. So other ways of pooling, we're like pooling HEX to achieve higher performing, exposure to higher performing HEX stakes and staking on your own. One way to do that is just to buy pool tokens at a discount. And so like something, so that things like that, I've kind of been interested in with, Poly kind of gave me that idea of kind of bundling pools. And then and then like, especially now with Pool Party, being able to consolidate liquidity across that, kind of almost like an HSI buyback, but into a different type of system where like you can sell your pool token to this thing at a set rate, and it's probably a discount, right? Because it's like it's like kind of if buy side liquidity isn't driving the premium up, then it's like the whatever that fair value that it's kind of the buyer's choice what they want to buy it at. And so if you're joining that type of thing that is now buying pool tokens at a discount, midway during their term, or even close to their like par value midway through the term, it's like it's like as if you are getting a higher APY than having started a new stake that ends on that day, because you're getting it at a discount with new HEX coming in. So that could be like, you know, a good solution there, because like just subsidizing liquidity at some point it runs out. You know, like say the mystery box just like injected a bunch of liquidity. If because the market always knows what the liquidity should be. So like if there's not a lot of liquidity, that's the market telling you that there shouldn't be much liquidity. And so just injecting it or like causing something that the market doesn't want, or kind of, you know, it's like you can only subsidize for so long. You know, if any entity was trying to just like pin liquidity, you know, you might run out one day. And so, especially if like the market strongly thinks that's wrong, because then it's just like that's the exit liquidity, because the market, if you're trying to pin a price into some range, but then the market's like, no way, this is not what it's worth, you know, you'll just get eaten up. And then whatever way it breaks, now you have all the thing that isn't valuable.
Right. It's a good way of explaining it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you know, so just subsidizing liquidity, I don't think is a good solution, but kind of allowing people that want discounted T-shares or want, you know how everyone's like, oh, 38% APY, but then when you look at it, the max APY you can actually get for starting a new stake today is like 32%. You could get a 38% APY by buying something at a 32% APY. Okay, so you're increasing by 6. That's about 1/5. So if you bought something earning 32% at a 20% discount, in effect, you are, from your perspective, and you know now you hold that and you hold it till redemption. From your perspective, you earned 38% APY because you got the 32% APY at a 20% discount. So that 1/5 discount, you know, 1/5 of 32 is about 6-ish. So you get up to that 38% threshold. So like kind of bring it, like that's the source of liquidity that you want, is the person that's trying to have market beating returns and is willing to take the risk of the market never actually getting that order filled, right? Because if you have the HEX and you're trying to amplify the earnings, like, you know, compared to just like staking on your own or joining a stake pool that ends around the time of that, you know, you need there needs to be that risk there, but you know, it's reflected in that discount that they can get. And if the person really wants liquidity, then maybe they're fine at it, you know, selling at some discount into that pool. And then, so I think that bringing buyers in through mechanisms like that, where they don't have to choose which pool token, kind of something that could consolidate and, you know, kind of let any, like, kind of not even care what even though, you know, because, you know, in some cases there might be serious brand value around these pool tokens, but, you know, some layer of kind of like blind liquidity where it's like, it doesn't matter which coin, it's mainly looking at the parameters of the stake. Yeah. And solutions like that for introducing liquidity, and kind of framing that like buying of these things is like, you know, it's just like an alternative to just staking, you know. So buying at discounts is an alternative to staking or joining a pool, you know, because it kind of needs some balance, right? Because like, and you saw it with like Maxi. When Maxi was there, it was the only thing that existed. And also no one thought it would pump. And so people weren't buying it with the expectation of pump, and there wasn't necessarily very much supply, only 300 million HEX. But then with DCA, there's now suddenly 4 new pools, you know, and DCA had twice the supply as Maxi did. And so DCA just had huge supply. And so if 100% of users are just minting in there, then no one, you know, it's like no one has liquidity. And so, you know, having a class of users that are, you know, pooling HEX, but not for starting new pools, but for buying like scaling into discounts in existing pools to achieve a higher APY. Solutions like that, I think, just make sense.
Well, speaking of brands too, question for HEX Love. So can we get name claim in the future? Talk about that.
Yeah. So the up until the launch, there's this like, you know, just a way to lock in names that are going to be just reserved for, you know, for you at the launch. Because when the launch happens, for starting the pool, if you want to start a HEX pool, each one has to have a unique ticker name. And so the ticker names are given to whomever has, you have to claim them. And the way you claim them is through an auction. So it's actually a lot like the Hedron auctions in order to claim these names, where you kick off a bid and then it's the bid lasts for 24 hours. And if new bids come in the last 6 minutes, then the deadline gets extended by 6 minutes. And so it's a very similar auction pattern. And so that's how you have to get names just during the launch. And so you have to pay for you have to, when you're bidding on names, your party is getting burnt. So party gets burnt as people bid on names. And so that's how it works when everything goes live. But I definitely want it because there are some people that were really interested in specific brand names on pools that, they'd be willing to go into an auction, but these are people that are involved today, not people that heard about it after, but like people that are here in this moment, people who are here before all this that wanted names that it's like if they would be left up to auction, who knows what the price would be? Who knows if someone's just going to try want to do that. So up until launch, there's a way to get your names included in the initial deployment of the contract. Because some names are already, like all of the pool names, those are not allowed. There's basically like a names already taken list.
I saw that list, yeah.
Like HEX, Hedron, Icosa, Poly, Maxi, Team, basically like all of ours, and basically ours, Alex's, and Richard's coins. Those names are not available. So like, since we're already kind of making that list of ones that are already spoken for, we just decided to give people an opportunity where if they wanted to lock in a value, like a name that first come, first serve, you can do a flat rate. And so you can mint names at nameclaim.hexpool.party right now. And you don't do an auction. So up until launch, there's kind of this, this phase where you can secure the names at a fixed rate, no auction. If it's a name you really want, some names, it comes out to be about I think like $300 at a flat rate. So most names are probably not worth that. So it's really only names that you really, really care about. And you don't want to risk there being an auction and you losing. So if there's a name that you see there that is available, and you think that possibly if you're worried about if you take it to auction, someone else outbidding you or causing you to pay more than that, then you can lock it in now. But so this one is kind of for that specific use case of people that really, really want to get a good, a name, maybe something that they have strong brand affinity to, and then so they can just lock that in without the whole auction process and risk losing it or having to pay much higher. Gotcha. So reserve names today. If you don't do it before launch, then it'll be done through auctions.
Auctions price can go up. It can. It's true. Sorry, everyone. There's a question in the chat, but I got a bunch more stuff to get to on my side, so I'm going to have to skip a few. What's up, Crypty Girl? Welcome. Spike, say hi to the chat real quick, and then we'll move on and keep partying hard here. Gold Key, what's happening, man? Good to see you. Mystery box. I hear that I got the gladiator scene in my head now, and I hear mystery box though. Maximus mystery box. We'll get to one more real quick. Hex Love, what influence, if any, will party pools have on perps? Have you covered this? I'm not sure.
So just like kind of how the perps were to Maxi and the perps are to each other. It's like they'll have more options, right? So like a potential buyer into like a 1 year stake, maybe now they have options to just join one. So they have to kind of compare to themselves. Do I buy, do I buy the HEX or do I buy the base or do I join a new pool? And because the pools themselves will have different parameters, because there's, the platform, like the fee for using the platform, which is, the pre-audited contract that, for pooling, the pooling for the HEX, pooling for gas, because the pools come with a built-in gas pool, so people can pool funds to reimburse the gas payer for ending the stake.
Right.
So, you know, all the contracts that you would want in a stake pool, those are already pre-audited, pre-built. You can click a button and deploy it. And then also just the platform for running the minting phase. And, you know, being, you know, featured into the, you know, this kind of, you know, T-share marketplace on the site. So just, you know, the cost of doing that is right now, this may change, still toying with different parameters. And this is one of them. Right now there will be a 1%, you know, just like from the initial HEX that is paid to party holders. And so, you know, so compare that to, you know, the base, you know, how base pays at the end. It's you know, based on the half of the earnings that were accounted for from bigger pays better, paid out at the end. And so, you know, just comparing if, you know, what you think is a better deal, you know, and then, you know, like new pool versus existing pool. And then, you know, so at some prices, the existing pool may be like a perpetual pool, maybe be better to join. At other prices, maybe a new pool be better to join. So it's kind of up to the person to decide what they want to do. But the perpetuals kind of have some baked in advantages against any new pool. So like, you know, I mean, T-share rate since then has gone up something like 10%. You know, those are just larger pools in general. And so, you know, because like with so many pools starting, it'll be harder for any of them to get close to the bigger pays better. And so, you know, Lucky and Trio are about halfway there. You know, and after Lucky, it'll be at about the max threshold. So like when the first Lucky cycle ends, since Lucky's earning like 25% APY, the end Lucky value will probably be somewhere close to like, I don't know, 200 million HEX. Started with 75 million, ending with about 200 million probably. And so Lucky's second go around, it'll already be at that max threshold of bigger pays better. Base will be a little bit less than that. Base will end up at about 112 million. But then now it's starting a new mint phase at 112 million. And they always ratchet up as they get closer because that bonus is more substantial. And so things reaching that higher, like that higher bonus level, like joining the existing pool, even though it's effectively capped at 5% bigger pays better in the existing perpetuals, you know, it'll be very hard for any of the new pools to get, you know, getting 70. So 5% means 75 million HEX pooled. It'll be very difficult for, you know, getting 75 million to any pool when there's so many available. That may be quite hard. So, you know, there's just different things to weigh there, you know, with those two. And, you know, so it's kind of, you know, so that's, which is good for, you know, people that want to get discounted, you know, just any opportunity for a new user to get discounted T-shares while simultaneously providing liquidity to someone who has those pool tokens and then wants to sell. Like that's a really good thing, you know. And like where, you know, so, you know, discounts are, I think, probably like the existence of discounts is what gives people liquidity. Because if price was always at a premium, then, and people were just only buying, like way overpaying, where like you're buying at too high of a premium, where had you just started a new native stake or joined a new pool that ends on the same day as whatever one is at a premium that you would be buying, you're effectively just underperforming. And so, you know, people may do that for some time, or, you know, maybe they'll, you know, probably premium buying will be more like trading, where, you know, premium is 5% today, but you think it's going to get as high as 20% premium at some point, you know, more of that. But if too many people are just buying at stupid high premiums, then those people run out of money at some point. And then everyone else who's able to analyze the data looks like, okay, the people that chose to buy at high premiums instead of buying at discounts or joining pools, they underperformed. So it kind of just regulates itself in that way. And so, you know, discounts are more of like the default state. And discounts are, you know, that's what attracts the liquidity. Like a good deal that you as a buyer can't, you know, you don't want to give up. So now you go in and buy that. You know, someone's trying to sell, say, a 25% discount. You're like, oh, easy choice. They go in and buy. Now that person is willing to sell at that discount, they're out of stuff to sell. Now you filled that, and then now, you know, the price is just a little bit higher. And so, then someone else, wants to sell, and then it gives that opportunity for someone to buy. So I think a more natural like symbiosis is like a healthy discount where like, the discount is competitive where, if the price stays too low for too long, it gets filled. But also giving a good deal to buyers so they can experience that performance. And then, because exiting out of a stake, like when you're selling a pool token, it's, the analog activity is early end staking and native stake. And so, if your stake is like right now, if you were to be early end staking a 10-year stake, so DESI's 6 months old, what would the penalty be for a 10-year stake ended at 6 months? It'd be full nuke. So like that's the analog circumstance is early end staking. Like if your pool token was instead a native stake, if you wanted to get out now, what would you get out of it? And so as of now, I kind of view DESI as having an infinite premium. The fact that you can sell for any price above full nuke, which would be an early end stake, to me, that's like a full, like infinite premium, dividing by zero type of thing. So, so having, so the discounts that's like what attracts liquidity, to have low slippage. Gotcha. It's like, so I mean, if there's just simply no supply available and someone wants that particular pool token, then, that's kind of what helps kind of inch that premium up like above par. But, like if it's too high, then it's just like a hard deal to a buyer, right? Like it's like buying, because if you view these stake pools as as HEX backed stable coins that are redeemable every couple years, then, it's kind of like, wouldn't it be kind of silly to be buying a bunch of USDT at like $1.20 if it's redeemable for $1? Like, so that means no one's going to be buying that. And so like, there's no buy pressure to keep pushing that up in that way. But what, so you probably care more about being able to sell at a fair price early than to just like dump on someone's head. And so I think that like like if the kind of a proliferation of pools, which really there's no way to stop. Like pooling is a popular concept. It has a lot of user benefits. Like the user benefits of pooling is like almost too massive to where like maybe this pooling concept should have been how HEX, like the default mode for HEX stakes should have been pooled in this way. Because it's kind of silly that like every single person that starts a max length stake today, so every day, a couple of them start. It's kind of silly they're all doing them separate. So, the pooling is it's such a powerful concept that like it there's always going to be demand for pooling, and so you can't stop that. Someone was tweeting like, why are you diluting? You should have just stuck to Maxi. The premium would have been higher. And it's like, okay, like ultra high premium means you're giving your brother a bad deal. Like someone new to your community, you're now giving them a bad deal. And also, it's like, how do you protect like something where it's like, pools can be started, if there's any kind of, any type of dilution or competition, it should at least be your own community's pools that are competing instead of like, other formats of pooling. So in general, like in inevitability that there is more, more pooling happens. And so any discounting that may cause should really just be reframed in your mind as the thing that attracts liquidity. Like that opportunity to buy a discounted T-share is opportunity for someone. And in order for them to execute on the opportunity, they are now giving you liquidity. They're like, okay, I'll take it off your hands. Like, so that's kind of the way that I view the growth in the pooling versus discounting.
That's actually a really interesting way to put it. Yeah. Alan says, for those glasses, what we need to do moon math.
Yeah, that they might be. They look really good when looking up at the ceiling.
They look cool. They'd have like a nice gold shine across them like that. Crypto style. It's nice to see. Nice to see. Thanks for coming along on this ride, on this party. We're getting to the party. I've got again, say hi to the chat real quick just to catch up, and then we will move on. What's up? Howdy Hexaroos. Yeah, again, sorry I can't get to all the questions right now, but I will no worries. Sure, your question more compelling. I try to prep, try to make good questions. So I hope not to disappoint. I hate trading chat questions for my questions, but
yeah,
I can't.
And if we're running out of time, we can do any type of rapid fire, anything. If I'm going on and on, feel free to.
How much do you make each year before taxes? That's Step Brothers.
Infinite
reference.
losses.
Infinite losses.
I experienced infinite losses, so I need an infinite refund.
It's been a tough bear market for us all. Don't worry, we'll hug it out. It's getting better, I think. I was gonna ask again. I do want to talk about party, but I'll save it just for a few minutes. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just briefly touch on this too, because I always, I tell people I always love Maximus, the Hedron ecosystems and stuff because of the positive feedback loop, no ICO, SAC phases. It's like you just kind of build stuff. Like, how do you? Can you ever catch yourself like having an idea and you're like, oh, that's going outside of the ethos, that's going outside of their principles and things like that. Do you ever like think of products or come up with something where like, that's kind of pushing it because maybe even with Executor and stuff, you could say like, oh, okay, that's introducing an angle that we haven't did in other products, and there's whatever you call that. But I'm just curious about your principles on building these products. I think nobody really talks about that, but I think it's super important and really keeps me, at least with my principles, mission oriented, doing what I do too. But on the product side, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, great question. That's a really great question, because like that, because like we definitely push like every new thing. It's like, we like compared to, from Maxi and beyond, it's like we keep kind of pushing it, expanding, trying new dynamics. And, sometimes you're faced with decisions like, like the Executor, for example, where it's, something that is an unknown, or something where like some discretion is needed to be provided, where like something you can't just so easily like leave up to some type of vote, or other ways to achieve that end, which is deciding what the bidding strategy would be. Where it required it to introduce like that new category of risk. And so the way that I balance that, and the way that I do that, is that one, like being able to quantify the risk is like very important. Like, so the max risk that the Executor model was geared to tolerate was about 85% loss. So that like the maximum risk of like true doomsday performance. So like any part of the auction process that we were unable to properly test beforehand, it was designed to where if anything went wrong there, the maximum losses would be capped at 85%. So things like that, where you can quantify a loss. So then that gives a user the max possible loss that they can use in their own risk reward profile for how much they're going to participate with. And so squarely like categorizing losses and then, segmenting the losses, or segmenting the risk. That's like a very critical piece, where if you're going to introduce things that kind of push boundaries on that, just squarely categorizing the risk is like critical. And so,
right,
so that's an example there. And then something that, like is different about kind of the name claim is that, it's basically like you can, it's using basically, you're relying on, if you're minting a name, you are, you're effectively trusting that those names will be minted and will be honored effectively. And so in that case, it was part logistics, because we wanted to be able to give people who had the name ideas that they want to lock in now, we wanted those people to be able to secure the names beforehand. And so just the timing of it kind of made sense that something would be going on beforehand. And so, and since the people that, we wanted to be able to lock that in, it's like there may already be some level of rapport with myself, or, some where they think that, that what I say is going to happen, and so, and so for people that can tolerate that risk, because maybe, they've seen how I operate over a number of years, they've participated in things with me before, personal relationship, they see that they can categorize that risk. It's like, okay, the risk is that, if I do this and he doesn't make it so that the names that were reserved in name claim were available, then, like that's the risk there. And so, that should limit, so if that's too high of a risk for that person to tolerate, then you don't need to do it now. Like, you can always wait. Maybe the name that you wanted is now taken, but now that person is bearing that risk. So, it's like, if you couldn't bear the risk, and it's limited there, right? It's like these names are at like a fixed rate, it's like probably the bigger risk is that like you pre-reserve a name, and that same name would have been auctioned off for a much lower price than the fixed rate during this pre-mint. So things like that, it's where it's like the names or, where like there is some level of risk, but there's some benefit you get from bearing that risk. And there's no hard pressure on you going outside the comfort zone. Like, you can always wait. There's no, other than, if you're worried about the auction price ratcheting up, running away from you, it's like, if that's the thing you're worried about, maybe you have to tolerate a little bit of risk. It's like, in that case, you think that the odds of those names being reserved pre-launch actually getting honored, you think that risk is lower than the risk of the auction price of the name that you want going up and someone getting it, or someone reserving it before you. So kind of how the risk of that is just like kind of squarely segmented there, I think works. And then kind of, the other element of the name claim system is how you can use unused, those like name claim points. So like the name claim token, you can burn those and then lock in 1-to-1 party. And so, you mint the name claim with ETH, and you're minting it at 48,000 to 1. So it's about a 15% difference versus the 42,069 rate that will be at launch. And so it's kind of like you're effectively like pre-minting your coins. So in that case, it's like, one, it's entirely voluntary, and the difference is it reflects the risk. That 48,000 rate versus 42,000 rate. It's like you get 15% more, by doing it through that avenue. It's like it's like, one, since people are already relying that the names themselves are going to be, honored, then that category of users, it's not really introducing any new risk to basically allow people to pre-mint at a discounted rate. Because it's like, if you already believe that the names will be honored, you might as well already believe that 1-to-1 minting is going to be honored at the, and so because the names were already being pre-allocated, it wasn't necessarily introducing any new risk to also allow people to just mint at that 1-to-1 rate, during this phase. And so, just giving people an opportunity to do that. And so that's why things like that, I think, work out, kind of in the past, where like 100% of supply is minted at the launch. There's kind of this pre-launch phase that was mainly done for logistics around names. But then, like, since, there's already that layer of risk there, adding that like 1-to-1 minting at a discounted rate, it's not necessarily introducing a new type of risk. And it's like, so and it's kind of rewarded, kind of how like the names, you're rewarded by getting a flat rate, meaning there's no chance that the auction price goes higher than whatever the mint rate is for the names right now. It's kind of similar to where you get a discount versus the thing. So it's like there's compensation for that added risk. There's truly no pressure at all to participate unless you're personally worried about your names. That's maybe the only pressure. That's kind of pressure you're applying to yourself. The discount's not massive at all. You know, it's not like a huge benefit. You know, and so I think so. Being really, really sensitive to the type of risk that's introduced, and if different things introduce additional risks, like really capturing and like reflecting the value of that risk, and just making sure that that there's no like ungodly pressure to bear that risk, and that that risk is somewhat compensated. So I'm glad you asked that, because I think about this a lot, but it's not necessarily something that is kind of discussed. But that's with each of these launches, because each thing, there's like strategic or logistical reasons to kind of bend things. Like the things that I don't want are just like, oh, send coins to this address and I'll make you something later. It's all done on a spreadsheet, because like everything that's like the structure of the like the name claim, and even like the structure of the executor, it's all through smart contracts. So like it still is, it's not like 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 the name claim contract itself is imported into the party contract, and the party contract reads the names directly from name claim. So like once it's launched, then you can then there will be no risk that the name claim is not honored, because it will have you'll already see that it is the contract that the main one reads from. That's how like the name claim contract was designed, was to be the source of truth for the full deployment to read from. And so it still is in line with those, where it's like things like these things, even though there's that a little bit extra risk introduced for people that choose to participate in this kind of this initial launch phase, they get it's still done in a way that sets itself up to be fully trustless as the full integration happens. And so that's why even like with the name claim thing, originally there wasn't going to be the minting of the ERC20. It was just going to be stored in the data table. But because I think there's some value in that, like tactile, because like you mint the name claim tokens and then you either use them to secure names, or you burn them for the one-to-one party allocation.
Right.
But I think there's something tactile about the ERC20 mint. You can see it in your wallet. It's funny. Name claim was like a throwaway ticker name, and it actually is like quite catchy. And so
is there a market for it?
Like that to fit in with like the smart contract governed, and then being able to like integrate that as part of the bigger one. So
is there a market for name claim?
So I don't think there is.
Not yet. Anyone out there want to put up liquidity?
Yeah, most people, last I looked, something like 80% of the name claim that was minted has already been converted into the party. So the main use case of the whole name claim thing has been locking in that 48,000 party per ETH rate instead of the 42,000 party per ETH. So that's actually been the main use case. Something like 120 some names have been claimed or something. But the name that people using as a channel to which is a pretty high signal of demand, way more than I thought. I thought that it would be I thought that names were like, I thought that maybe like 100 names would be done, and like a very tiny amount of that, the party, because like I didn't think that the 15%, like it's a good discount, but it's not like like I didn't want to put any massive pressure on people by making that discount like massive. Like too big of a discount I think is bad, and it puts added pressure. So that was very carefully chosen. So I long question, like for things that where we kind of put like keep advancing and introducing new dynamics, and when those things have to be put in context alongside kind of those those core values of like trustless contracts, it's like really those are done very, very carefully and with very much thought about really what is the risk that it introduces and how is that risk mitigated and contained.
Yeah. I always love asking those type of questions too. If Alex ever comes back on the show, I think I'll ask him the same thing because, yeah, you guys are my favorite builders in the community. Like there's something just clean and nice about. Again, nothing against SAC phases. I participated in various ones of products that I think are going to be great, but the teams who aren't doing them and you're just doing the swaps or the airdrops or otherwise, very cool and very unique and a very healthy way of doing it too, I think. So you're saying we're getting a copy of name claim on PulseChain, right? We're getting our name claim tokens on PulseChain.
So very, very interesting dynamic with PulseChain. It's funny because Maxi launched actually a year ago on the 16th. So Maxi's
that's
birthday
right.
was
Yeah,
2 days ago.
Happy birthday to Maxi, by the way.
Yeah, and that launch phase was abbreviated from 30 days to 14 days out of fear that PulseChain would launch because we wanted the stake to start before the fork. Even though it really doesn't make a difference on it wouldn't have made a difference there. We just really wanted the supply of it to be equal. So that was like literally Maxi probably would have been a lot bigger, but we were actually worried that mid-May 2022, not mid-May 2023. So
it's more likely than ever. So close.
So, it's nice when the full process can complete and then the copy happens, but it's actually a little bit different in the case of Pool Party because, for one, when on PulseChain itself, like the unit, so the PLS token, like PulseChain is to PLS what Ethereum network is to ETH, and so that coin is like the default unit, and it's the gas paying unit. The name claim contract and with Party with like the ETH minting, that's denominated in ETH. So like the contract itself, when copied over, it can, because you can actually make it where, like, if the network ID is not 1, meaning mainnet, then there's some other rate. But Namecoin does not have that built in. So there is some nuance to just the supply scaling. Like, for instance, 1 ETH on, the value of 1 ETH is going to be vastly different than the value of 1 Pulse. And so for things that are like, like with the minting of Party, because it's like, 42,069 to 1, then all that would mean if like, say PulseChain launched right when Party launched, like right after Party launched. So meaning the Party contract on ETH mainnet was now suddenly copied over to PulseChain. Basically, all that would happen would just be that the supply of the one on PulseChain would be much higher, because it'd be 42,000 to 1 unit, whether that's ETH or Pulse, and the coins themselves are full. Everything on Ethereum is entirely independent of everything on PulseChain, and so the supply of the Party will just be much higher, because 1 ETH is nothing, or 1 Pulse is nothing, right? Whereas 1 ETH is quite substantial. So that's kind of the only difference there. The name claim thing is pretty unique, because if you've minted so far, you'll get the names are actually set to be kind of expensive, because most of the like very, very valuable names, there's probably really only a couple dozen, a couple hundred maybe, of really valuable names that like would be very desirable. And so it was meant to be like a high bar for like those names. So if PulseChain was to launch today and include name claims thing, then it would basically be trivial to just go and just mint with very little risk, very little money. You could go and just mint all the names on PulseChain. So that would kind of thwart the pre-name claim on PulseChain, because there wasn't anything to mitigate that network difference in the name claim contract. So if it happened then that may be the case. But there's also, because like I said, there's some level of discretion, of like, people, they're minting the names in the name claim phase, believing that those names will be honored. There could be, because there's that level of discretion there, then if the PulseChain fork happened now and then someone went and just got all the names and paid nothing for them and kind of thwarted the whole pool party experience on PulseChain, then those may not be honored, right?
Hulk goes smash.
Yeah, so like I could redeploy the name claim contract, take the fork of all the people that had, or even maybe even not, because they're fully independent, and so even make it where the PulseChain is its own separate thing. Or maybe I'll do it where if you minted before PulseChain, you get both, but because then it would be like as if the average cost of it is still quite high, because it should really, the name claim should really only be for the high value names. And so there's that flexibility where like I could roll out a new name claim contract that because in that case, if PulseChain launches before Party launches, then Party will have to be deployed independently on 2 different chains. And so since it's already doing that, then the name claim, it's like I could swap out the name claim contract address for Ethereum. There'd be one for Ethereum, then the new deployment on PulseChain. If that was to happen, the timing was to happen where PulseChain launches today, and then so name claim started here, and then if it was being thwarted on the PulseChain side, then a new name claim contract would be the one that feeds into the PulseChain pool party contract, whereas the Ethereum pool party contract will take the existing name claim one, and then it would be mitigated in that way. So
I don't think you have to worry about it. I think it's more likely mid-May than today or tomorrow.
Yeah. So that's the case there. And then
interesting.
So ideally PulseChain launches after everything, and then just from there it's
flood my bags, man.
Stop flooding
my bags.
Balance out.
We're going by the Maximus schedule now. It's meant to be. Never know. All right, I have like 5 more minutes left. I have to get this in though. What's elevator pitch for staking 100 years with Party? Go.
Yeah. So you can when you hold Party, there's 2 yield sources. You can either earn yield in HEX by simply holding it, no staking, no nothing. The contract does a biweekly snapshot, and all the HEX that was earned by the Party contract during that period of time, you can claim if you just simply held HEX or held Party. So that's Party holding Party liquid. You can choose to stake your Party, which burns the Party. And by doing that, you are not earning the liquid because you're not included in that liquid Party snapshot. You're not earning HEX yield today. Instead, you are growing the amount of Party you have for tomorrow. So you can choose the length of your stake, and it goes from 1 day to 36,500 days. That is 100 years. So there is a Party staking system that you can max it out. And when you stake your Party, there's no early end staking. Staking Party is a serious commitment. And when you stake Party, you can actually determine exactly how much you'll earn. It's kind of like Hedron, where once you know the T-shares you have in the days, you at least know a minimum that you can earn. There's things with the ASMR bonus and stuff like that that change that. But with staking Party, you actually can calculate. And I published an article detailing the detailed math, which I'll just send in the private chat. But so the max length stake with Party is 100 years. And what that comes out to is that 100-year stake is basically getting 4.7% annually compounded interest. So the maximum inflation of Party, which would be if 100% of the supply was staked for 100 years, the annualized inflation would be about 4.7%. So a little bit higher than HEX's max possible inflation of 3.69%. So that would be the max, but it's unlikely that 100% of the Party is staked. And if 100% of the Party is staked, like what's the price of the Party? The dust that doesn't get staked. So there's some kind of normalization in there.
Interesting.
And so the minimum inflation of Party, which would be if nobody stakes, would be 0%, because new Party inflation only comes when Party is staked. So that's So 0% is the minimum possible. I guess the minimum possible inflation is negative because when party's burnt as part of the auctions, it's burning party. So, so if no one's staking, no supply growth. If 100% of the supply was staking at the minimum, was doing basically a 1-day revolving stake ladder, where it's every day it's staking 1 day, repeating, the annual supply inflation would be about over a 2-year period, it would average out to be it would be about 2.3%, but actually maybe half of that because of the way that the day starts and ends. Like if you were to repeat a 1-day stake, your stake is serving for half of a year because every other day is like a buffer day. So, so the actual inflation of parties can be quite low, and it's delayed because of the staking. And so, for like the part of it, so you can kind of toggle around there. But having that type of inflation schedule, what it does, it makes longer pay much better. So like the difference between like 20 years and like 30 years, the APY difference is not very high, but the difference between like 60 years and 80 years, that's quite high. So longer pays dramatically better. But because there's no early end staking, and it like that inflation is very much delayed, the party supply, it has that nice balance where like over about 100 years was set pretty carefully too, because that's like, like what year was your grandpa born in?
Thinking which one? I don't know. Let's say like 1932.
Okay, so almost 100 years from now. My grandpa was maybe I was kind of, because my grandpa was 100. He lived to 100.
Wow.
And so it's like your grandpa, your parent, and then you. So like the life's like 100 years is kind of in that like 3 generation. Like you and your grandpa experienced the 100-year window, roughly.
Right.
And so, kind of multi-generational thing was kind of important there. I mean, this model, there really is no limit. Like I declared a limit on the staking length, but it doesn't need to be, because it's a deterministic yield where you can calculate how much you're going to earn explicitly. But it's cut off there, and it's meant to be kind of like a way to like where each like multi-generational phase, there can be a new cohort of big players where like, people that are high earners today in party by just holding liquid party. So people are earning a lot of the HEX from the pooling platform. They're earning a lot today, but maybe next lifetime, next generation, newer entrants can come in and they're now earning at a higher rate. So that's kind of what it's meant to kind of recycle over a long period of time who the top earners are. So that's really the purpose of the 100 years max length stake.
Wow. So the party don't stop until your stake ends.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. Or the party don't start till your stake ends.
Now the party don't start till my stake ends.
I see there's some that could be a new hit single from Depth Catcher Radio, everyone. What's happening? Got the glasses, got my shirt on though this time. Great segue. OG3 says, so Lambo for my grandkids. That's what we're trying to do for you, sir. That's what we're trying to do.
Like it. 100 extra bag in 100 years. Which is actually, so it's pretty, because if you think about what would your, like, if you're, what, like the HEX inflation over a 100-year period, the HEX supply is scheduled to increase to, I think it's like 35x. So if it's 3.69 per year, so let's assume that you're doing your math starting after year 15. Because right now, there's this phenomena of delayed inflation. That delayed inflation kind of goes away after 15 years when you have last cycle's max length stake Genesis T shares who are like the top earners. When all the penalties for a full 15-year cycle are kind of flushed through, the actual HEX inflation will approach that 3.69% target. Right now, it's the effective inflation is much lower because there's just like delayed inflation from penalties and Genesis earnings. So after about 15 years, the inflation of HEX will be about 3.69%. It'll be closer to it than it is today. And so if you raise that 1.0369 to 100, comes out to 37. So in 100 years, the HEX supply is going to be about 37 times larger than it is today. And so, because
FUD my bags again, man. FUD my bags again.
But everyone's growing together. So it's like, if you're a above average staker, you experience no inflation because your piece of the pie grew. If your piece of the pie grows by 37x in 100 years, then that means that your piece of the pie remained constant. So you weren't impacted by that inflation. And so it's kind of similar phenomena here where the max inflation that it could grow by over a 100-year period is 100x, but that's assuming everyone max length stakes a 100-year party, which could happen. I don't think so. It remains to be seen what that is compared to HEX. But there is some number of like an average stake length that would cause the party supply to grow in lockstep with the HEX long-term supply. So
90-year average stakes for party. We could see. RG3 said what their shit. Well, we didn't say what they could do with their party. They could buy Lambos and just buy like 20 Lambos. You never know.
Yeah, I guess, just if you be there for them, maybe they have, and be there for their parents, then maybe that increases the chances that they're not. But who knows these days? These public schools,
exactly. You gotta write some notes and make sure there's people that give them the information. Like, don't I don't want to tell you how to party, but here's some ideas. Maybe that. Anyways, man, fantastic conversation as usual. Number 5, I think you're number 5. I have a folder called Dipcatcher-05, and now it's going to have some clips, I assume. What do you want to take us out on, man? What are you feeling good about? What's happening? 30 seconds or less before my wife starts knocking on the door again.
Feel good. Just about everything. It's been an exciting couple months in HEX. Like, big move off the very lows, but it's funny to see the perspective of like price hitting 12 cents and then like a retrace to where it is now. It's kind of funny seeing everyone's kind of shift in perspective. Very exciting, moment for HEX. I think pool party is going to be a big move forward for the HEX ecosystem. It'll give a lot of people the opportunity to grow their own pools, to kind of be a token founder. It's such a fulfilling thing to, create something, and
you're a 10x token founder, man.
Proudly hoard it. And so giving other people that experience, I think, is going to be exciting. It's going to allow people to, experiment with new sales methods, messaging, framing around these pools, different, dynamics. I think it's just going to unlock a lot of creativity with people. I'm really excited about the party kind of yield duality of like you either hold the part, like I think it's like the headline photo in that link. It's like you either hold your party liquid and earn HEX, or stake your party and earn party. Like anytime there's a difficult decision on what to do, that's a good thing. Because that'll increase the value for everyone. It's a very hard decision, so I'm very excited to see how that plays out with the 100-year party stake, no early end stake, or versus just holding party liquid and earning HEX. I think that's a really awesome dynamic there. Really, really excited for, just continuing on, everything, because we should be ready for the launch here in a couple weeks. We're just doing some very thorough testing. So really excited.
Ask about that. Okay, good.
Back in a launch phase, whole lot of testing, whole lot of code review. Just because there's really no rush, so like really and because, we're thinking 100-year party stake, this is a very long-term oriented thing. And so,
check your numbers event.
Yeah. Zero rush, so definitely just trying to make sure everything is just perfect. A lot of testing, a lot of optimizing. So getting ready for a launch, these launches are so fun. It's like, I can't go. I start like,
it's been amazing.
Need something.
I know. Everyone else, we're just watching your Twitter, and just love the products you build, man. You and GoKey both just killing it, and I'm excited to another launch. We've had like 10 launches from you guys so far. They're so fun. I agree with you. I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Smash the buttons for Dip Catcher. Go follow him at Tanto No Mean. He says Nomini sometimes, whatever. And he's maybe a bruschetta chef. I don't know. It could just be a name so great that I keep forgetting the second part. Name so great, there's not a name. What is it going to finish it for?
It's like a name so great you can't even describe it in a eulogy.
That's it. God, that's epic. Okay, everyone. Scivive and 5555. Everyone. Gladiators out.